This is Talk Over Tea,
a place for a casual conversation about life and local government.
With Kassandra
and Claudel Frederic,
elected officials from the City of Amesbury, Massachusetts.
Relax with us for a moment. The tea is hot.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk Over Tea.
Welcome.
How are you today, Claudel? That was a loaded question.
Yeah.
We, for those of you who, we've probably never said this, but we often film on Fridays, and today feels like a TGIF Friday.
Yes.
Doesn't it?
Oh, man. It's literally been one of those weeks.
Yeah.
And I feel like it transitions from the holidays, and then it transitions to the long or short weeks.
Yeah.
You just don't know what day of the week it is sometimes.
We're headed into another short week. It's just like
Long
creates
weekend.
a lot of
chaos.
Chaos.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of people are feeling new energy right now too, and
Right.
you kind of feel the motivation from all angles, and it's like, all right, we're doing this
Yeah,
right now,
there's a lot
today,
of-
right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here we are. So we're gonna hit pause,
Yep.
sit. We're gonna sip on our tea, and we're
That's
gonna
it.
just have a conversation
I'm with
without
it.
all of the noise. Right?
I'm with it. I'll
Okay.
take a sip to that.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, we were talking about, sort of what we wanted to discuss today, and one of the topics that we've been sort of throwing around is talking about branding and sort of the marketing communication side of what we do. The city went through a branding initiative a few years ago, and like so many things that we do, it was highly controversial. We did it for good reason, and branding and marketing communication is just such a core piece of our daily lives, and so important for you and your work. And so,
Yeah.
just thought it'd be interesting to sort of start there, and I know you're going through a transition in your
Yes.
professional life too, where of
Correct.
course branding is important. So
Very.
yeah, let's talk a little bit about branding and
Absolutely.
why it's important.
Yeah, I mean, branding is definitely a big deal. Like you said, I personally am going through a transition right now, career-wise, switching brokerages.
Yeah.
But for me, the reason why I found branding so important was because I understood from the very beginning that no matter where I am, I will still be my brand, right? So no matter what brokerage I align myself with, my brand will follow me. Like, you know what I mean? My reputation, my brand will follow me.
Yeah.
And kind of needed to give it a character. You know what I mean? Like I needed that attachment.
Yeah.
So I would not be just whatever people decide that
Right.
you know what I mean? That they want me to be.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's kind of why Amesbury did their thing with branding, or
Yeah, well, it's such an interesting actually transition, and real estate's sort of a unique profession where people hire you as as a person, like you said, you're sort of
Correct.
like your own brand. You get to be authentic to who you are.
Yes.
And I saw you sort of engaging in conversation as you made this transition of like, does the brokerage, how much does the brokerage sort of weigh into people's decision about who they hire?
Correct.
But I think the sort of support, that branding, that marketing. Before we got started, you were talking about having a listing coming up, and that you sort of need your materials, right?
Yes.
Like that stuff is important, and it supports the work that you do. And so for the city, same mentality, right? As who are we as a city? What do we represent? What do people think of when they think of our city? And that's really where we started
Right.
with our branding initiative. Is we held some public forums, we called them listening sessions, and we asked people, what do you think of when you think of Amesbury? If you tell someone who doesn't live here about Amesbury, how do you describe us? What's something that that you wouldn't want changed in Amesbury? Like, what's something that's really important to you? Why did you move here? Why do you like living here? So we could kind of collect that general feedback about what is that authentic sort of brand and representation of our city? And then how do we represent that visually and sort of create those, that brand and visual feeling for people in the mediums that we work in. So for you, it's business cards, pamphlets, signs, and those things. For us, it's a lot of social media and digital imagery, websites, and, materials that are digital. But we also have little hang tags that we put on people's doors from the inspections department or the assessor's department.
Right.
And we have stickers that people put on their cars for the compost site or for a parking sticker. And so how do we make sure those are all cohesive and we look like they all work for the same city?
That's
you know?
it. Yep.
And that makes us more efficient with our time and our money. It makes our staff, feel like their jobs are, it makes their jobs easier. They don't have to reinvent the wheel or create those things on their own. They have templates and, those things are ready for them. They have what they need. It makes them feel like they're part of something larger, right? They're part of
enterprise.
this organization,
Yeah.
right? And that's part of what it's like for you to join a brokerage, right? You're part
Correct.
of something bigger. There might be more than one office. Everyone has the same
Correct.
look and feel. And we didn't have that. So we do have a city seal, and we had the seal on a lot of things, but city seals weren't really created. Well, they certainly weren't created in an era of communications like we know it, right? They weren't made to be put on Facebook.
Yeah.
They don't really translate well to a digital format. So we were, in some ways, in my opinion, we're sort of misusing the seal. The city seal was meant for, official communication, official documentation, and we started kind of slapping it on everything. People's, safety vests and cars and social media and, other things that it's really not what it was meant for. I mean, it's literally a seal that
Right.
that people, that our clerk's office stamps onto pieces of paper for, for verification that it's real. And we're going to talk a little bit more too about like, how do we know something's real and we trust that information? But that's really why we got into that branding initiative to begin with, is sort of, how do we sort of just bring us all together to tell one story and make sure that when people talk about Amesbury or they see something that's from the city of Amesbury, they know it's really from us, or they know that it's the city of Amesbury that they're looking at.
I've never really paid attention to branding of other cities.
Yeah.
To even thinking about it now, I don't know if I've ever actually looked to see like what is this other city's branding
Yeah.
like, and I am very familiar with other cities just using
Yeah.
their
seal.
seal.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it might take value away from the importance of the seal, like
Exactly.
like you're saying. So that's I've never really thought about it.
Yeah, you'll see there's communities all across the country that have some other type of, brand to it. Communities near us, like Salem, Massachusetts, has a different sort of moniker that they use. Bigger cities like Boston, we looked at some examples in Maine. There's some cities out west that we used as an example, but there's, small towns and other places too. And there's, graphic designers and branding companies that's all they do is this sort of sense of place and, destination type marketing and branding. So it's becoming more and more popular. We actually just hosted a webinar with the Mass Municipal Association, and it was myself, the communications director for the city who worked on this project with us, and the graphic designer who designed our sort of visual representations, the logo. And people should remember, like, the logo is not the brand. It's a piece of the brand. And so the three of us did that presentation together in a webinar to other municipal officials across the Commonwealth. And there were, over 100 people who were participating in the webinar. It's certainly becoming more of an sort of a hot topic. People are really interested in it. They're looking at a way to distinguish themselves, find something that is unique to identify their city. Again, a lot of the things we've had for tools in the past are antiquated. They don't really translate well. They're hard to embroider or to screen print, or they just don't transition to the way we use a brand, like a logo or brand today. And so people are sort of communities are getting to the point where they realize they need something more modern and contemporary to apply in that platform. So I think you'll see more and more of that. And we're happy to be a resource. And I think it worked well for us. And we've also kind of, in my own head, understand that this may evolve over time too. There's a lot of big companies who change their brand, go through a rebrand every 10 years or something,
Yeah,
right?
it's necessary. It's growth.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely necessary to rebrand and just, you know, like a city, like cities are in place for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't think worrying about an identity was the top of mind.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
especially moving into a time of more modern days, everything is changing, you know,
Yeah.
like branding, communication, like everything,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? How we get information. So we have to move with that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and like, you know, I said sort of finding a way to identify yourself as a unique, right, like space, as a community that is different from those of, you know, than your neighbors. You know, if you look at the city seals, they're not that unique, some of them. And so you think it's yours, you know, ours has a carriage on it, which, you know, everybody has a distinct association with the carriage. But there's a community right next door to us who also has a carriage in the middle of their seal, which, you know, many people probably don't realize. But when you put them all together, it's like, oh, wow, these all look a lot alike, you know? So how do we find other ways to distinguish ourselves and follow that conversation we had from the beginning of how do you think of Amesbury? What's important to you? You know, you know, how do you describe us? Those types of things. And then again, you know, sort of pull that all together. So it was an interesting exercise. I think it served us well, and it does help us, like you said, you know, sort of think about how we provide information. I think it helps the reader, the constituents, understand that what they're looking at is an official document. You know, that it has come from us, whether it has a seal on it or is branded. You know, when you're looking for a Facebook page, they all look the same. Like there's a very distinct look and feel to a page that is run by the city versus a volunteer organization or someone else who's just sort of like grabbed it.
Very uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's boring. So that's good. I think we were very conscious when that was being done. So
Yeah.
that's good. And that speaks to Amesbury itself not being very boring.
Yeah.
So that's definitely cool.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I'm glad you don't think it's boring.
No, it's not boring. It's not boring.
Yeah, I mean, what we ended up with is something, you know, very colorful and you know, bright. It's, you know, it's vibrant. It does connect sort of our history to our future, and I think it does, you know, represent Amesbury in a lot of ways. So it does give us a lot of options to sort of play with the brand, and we've assigned certain colors to certain departments. So for the presentation we did for that webinar, we have a slide where it shows the way our departments used to represent themselves, and some of them had volunteers who had made their own logos. We had our library had a logo they had made, and our recreation department had a logo they had made, and you know there were others too.
Wait, run that back. Did you say that the colors represent each department? Is that
some of them do? Yeah.
Okay, so that's news to me. That's
Yeah.
cool. I wasn't aware of that. So
Yeah.
I guess it's not just a bunch of colors thrown together. It's like,
Right.
oh, bright and happy. So
Yeah.
there's
And
play to it. That's good.
Yeah, and you know, I can hear people in my head saying, "Well, if you have to explain a logo, then it doesn't represent, you know, then it doesn't do its job." But there's a lot of logos out there that have a lot of deep meaning in them, and no one's ever explained them to you, right?
Right.
So we use it in different colorways. So we use gray for the police, we use red for fire, we use green for DPW. All of our administrative offices use the light blue. The library uses the orange, I think, if I'm recalling that correctly. So we do have certain colorways that we use. So in that slide I have, if you looked for all of our Facebook pages that are all official pages, the sort of profile picture is like our logo in white on the colored background that is representative of their department. So they all look this, and then they have, you know, their cover photo is just a nice picture that sort of represents what they do. Right?
Yeah.
It's like kids playing at the park if it's recreation. It's, you know, the outside of the fire station if it's the fire department. And so again, it looks like, oh, that's like one company, you know?
Right.
They didn't used to look like that.
Yeah.
So it does help with people understanding that they're on an official page and getting accurate information.
It's good information.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
had
does.
no idea about that. That's good.
Which is fascinating because that was the other thing. So when we were talking about this topic, it sort of led me in this direction of, you know, how we get our information today, and like how do we know that it's official? How do we know that it's true and accurate? How do we trust the source, right? So how do you identify that page is a city page, or how do you know that the information you're getting is trustworthy? And it's increasingly challenging.
Well, yeah, we're flooded with information, like overload of information.
Yeah.
So it is tough.
Pete Buttigieg, Secretary Pete, I found an Instagram sort of reel recently, and he said, we've never had more information and we've never been less informed.
Yeah,
Like
the
you said, there's
confusion
just
is real.
so much information.
Yeah.
And we lack the ability to sort of decipher, right? Especially with all this AI and like deep fakes and stuff. We lack the ability to sort of decipher what's real and what's fake, which is a scary place to be. And I see a lot of people more recently, and for a variety of reasons, sort of saying like, that's it, I'm quitting social media, I'm getting off. And, if you have my number, you know how to find me. And my sort of internal conversation, the conversation I'm having with myself is like, well, then how am I going to communicate with them? Because we rely so heavily on social media. When I ask people, or they say, well, I didn't know about that event, or no one told me. I say, well, where do you get your information, right? And it's either word of mouth or I get it on social media.
Yep.
And yeah, I'd love to quit social media too. It's a way, it takes up so much time. You spend hours scrolling. People, the like negativity on there, all of that. But what could I replace it with to get information as the person trying to get information to the masses? We have an e-newsletter, but what could we replace it with to get you accurate information? How can we support our small business? Like, what would happen to our small businesses if everyone was like, yeah, I'm just quitting social media. I'm not going to go here for information anymore.
Honestly, I don't think that's something that we are going to figure out right now.
No.
No, not even in like within this century, probably. I don't know. So the way information is basically given right now, it almost gives us no choice. And I almost feel like you said, to trust information on the internet is very, very tough at times, right? So that's why I find a lot of value still in like person to person, like, you know what I mean? Like meetings, or just, you know what I mean? Like those conversations, like actually knowing who you are talking to. Like, hey, maybe referrals. Like, hey, I want you to meet my friend, and boom, here's what they do. And I have good communication and rapport with them. I feel like that we've lost that completely. Now people's resources are like, oh, look, this person follows 15 people that I might know. This must be a good person. What? This is how people kind of make judgments, or there's the fear of missing out. It's like, why am I the only person that's not following this person? Why am I not taking information from this person? Why am I not buying a house with him? Like, it's
fair point.
It's a great resource. It could be used for good and bad, but like, it's wild.
One of the other things that Secretary Pete said is his sort of like recommendation to solve this, right? Is like, what do we do? He said, find people offline when they're better than they are online. And I do think about that a lot. And I know I have prioritized communication in our administration, and we do a lot on social media, and we do, again, we've got newsletters, and, we do things like this. But I do find that I think a lot about what types of information I put into those spaces and what types of information I share more, like you said, one-on-one with people. And I sort of like let them, there's value in that word of mouth. Like I said, if I ask people where they get their information, they say, oh, word of mouth. Like, oh, my friend tells me, I have other people like better connected. Then I just use that. And so there's some information it's easier and it feels more reliable to share and work with people one-on-one, or to say like, come in and meet with me. Right. And like, and let's talk about it. And we solve things faster, and we come to, better resolutions, and it's so much easier to just have that, like, just a conversation between two people.
A person is a way better person in person.
Yeah.
Like, versus online, the way even they react to things like online, it's, I don't know, there's like some type of courage when you're behind that keyboard, I guess, versus in person, or even just the way they interact with you.
Yeah.
It's really different. I've literally met
Yeah.
people that I felt like they were one way online, and in person, it's like, are you not the same person?
Yeah.
Like, it's either they're really timid in person, or they're just really just, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just completely different. Like,
It makes me think a little bit about trust too, right? Like, is it, and this is something that, this was one of my maybe bigger, I don't say learning curves, but sort of like surprises when I took office, was that there were even people I knew really well before I took office. As soon as I took office, if I talked to them about certain things, or, was in public meetings and, we were talking about plans, the reaction was, I'll believe it when I see it. The city said that before. They've never been able to do that. I don't think you're going to be able to do it. Like, there was just this like immediate response of, I don't trust you.
yeah,
You're not telling me the whole truth.
right.
When's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? I don't think you can deliver. Just because I got the title of mayor, like nothing changed with
Your
me.
integrity.
Like, exactly, my integrity didn't change, but
Yeah.
they like immediately felt like it was that it had.
Right. You joined a different gang or something.
Yeah.
You joined a gang.
Yeah. And so again, that when you're the one trying to relay the accurate information, when there's things online, people can sort of act there, like you said, in one way that it's different than on, in person. They can sort of speak with authority, and people trust that, but they don't trust what someone who's actually making the decision says in person, or even if they're saying it online. Like, if the two of us were saying something online, someone who's, could literally just be making it up.
Yeah.
Versus someone who's actually making the decision. I actually think people are more inclined to believe the person who's totally making it up.
I mean, I definitely
It's
believe
amazing.
that too.
It's mind-blowing to me.
There's been this huge separation that has happened within the internet, right? This us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's like, at that point, whoever that naysayer is, they're really rallying people up and getting them all aroused. And to just say, hey, it's them over there versus us, the people that are not in office or that are, you know what I mean? It's that us versus them type of feeling. It's like, I don't think this is done for fun or for power.
Right. So
You know what I
that's
mean?
like perfect. I brought another quote. So I've been sort of like digging into this a little bit, and there's this guy I found he's on LinkedIn, and he's started recently, and I was looking for an explanation of why his posts sort of changed, but there wasn't one. He's a doctoral candidate, so maybe that's why. Maybe it's part of his research. But he's a city manager in Texas, and he said, most of us in public service didn't choose this path for recognition of power. We chose it to solve problems that matter.
Right.
We wake up every day knowing the system is far from perfect, but believing we can make it better. He said, if we're going to fix the disconnect, it starts with seeing public service for what it really is, a relentless effort to manage complexity, solve problems, and improve lives, even when the path forward is anything but clear, which we can certainly relate to. And then he said, it's not us versus them. It's all of us stuck in a system that demands patience, resilience, and sometimes uncomfortable trade-offs.
And Tylenol? Did he put in Tylenol? Or, that should have been
Do
in
you
there.
have some?
Yeah.
Yeah. He went on and he said, public servants carry the burden of knowing that even the best decisions won't please everyone.
Yeah, no.
They operate in a space where outcomes are judged in isolation, without context, and where success is often invisible while mistakes are public. And I was like,
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate, right?
Deeply feel this in my core. It's just, I wish I could share all of his posts and all of his quotes, but it just, he has something in here about trust. And I think that's really, sort of the core of it. And like, I don't know how you feel, I'd be curious actually, like, how do you think you build trust, right? The basis of this is that, we need people to believe what we're telling them. Like, how do you trust someone despite the fact that we're in public office and what we are communicating? Like, we're part of this flood of information. And I think people want facts, but there's this question of whether they can trust us. So how do you build trust?
That's a tough one, but
Yeah.
But I feel like it's almost like you have to wake up day to day and just continue to be the person that you really are, right? Your integrity is everything. At the end of the day, I mean, there's no one I could force to trust me. I can't, you know what I mean? You can't put that on anybody. You just have to continue to, I don't know, be your authentic self. And maybe some people will start to see it when they understand or start to see how much they're being flooded with misinformation. Because I feel like at some point or the other, these things become debunked. It's like, oh, so what they were telling me like 2 years ago or what I was hearing was not true, because that's not how the plan played out. So they actually did what they said they were going to do and not what you thought was going to happen, this conspiracy.
Yeah.
So I think you just got to be consistent
Yep.
in like your moves and your intentions. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only way, because if we're chasing, I feel like if we're constantly chasing this trust, then we're going to try to please each and every person versus making the right decision
Yeah.
based on how, based on our integrity and just who we are. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And I think, I often consider that it's just, we'll prove them wrong in time, right? The hard part is we don't always have time because we have terms.
Yeah.
And so, keep that in mind a lot. And I try to balance sort of like quick wins with long-term plans. And it's a lot about just like doing what you say you're going to do. But I also think there's a lot of value in what you won't do.
Right.
Like seeing people being able to see what your boundaries are.
Yeah.
Right. So things here like overrides, which is like it's a hot topic, right?
Oh, that was a really
But,
hot one.
I have said I'm not interested in an override. I won't let it happen. And that, I assume, has value to people to know that I do have a boundary there, on that particular thing. And so I think there's value in that as well, of just sort of what people see that you will not do.
Right.
What will you not engage in? What will you not allow to happen? So I think that's valuable too. This guy in Texas, Brooks Williams is his name. One of the other things he said is local government is supposed to be the most trusted level of government, the one closest to the people,
Right.
the place where collaboration thrives. If we want local government to work, we have to start with ourselves. We need more humility, more curiosity, and a willingness to learn. We need to stop treating outrage as a substitute for engagement.
That's
And
wow.
I thought, well, that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah. I'm pretty
Right?
sure he dropped the mic after that.
Yeah.
one.
And that's why I love local government,
Yeah.
because it is on our doorsteps. And we've talked a lot about
Right.
how we're out in our neighborhoods. We participate in our community, and we want other people, or encouraging other people to sort of join us, get involved. And, if you're upset, join us at the table. Like, one of the most important things we need are the voices of opposition. Like, we need people to participate. And, I love that local government is supposed to be the most trusted level of government, the one closest to the people.
But it makes sense. It's because, like, literally, these things are directly affecting us, too. It's like, it's not like I'm exempt from paying taxes or exempt from, any of the bills and
Yeah.
resources that everybody else is getting. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. Your problems are my problems are yours. Like, it's,
Right.
Yeah.
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 So, I'm curious where you get your news, not just local news, but like any news. Like, do you have people you follow? Do you have?
Yeah. So again, it comes down to trust, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm curious.
So some people I just feel like I could trust. It's that like they have a track record. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So like that's kind of what I pay attention to. A lot of the internet stuff, I feel like I have to check like 3 resources to see if it's like literally saying the same thing. If I'm reading an article, like I'm like big on that, I'll try to do that, or I'll go directly to the source, if it's possible at all.
Yeah.
Because if not, then it gets watered down, and then like you just don't know what part of it is true or not true. So as long as I could go to the source, that's usually my best bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't have any particular news media outlet or anything that you...
Tell you the truth, I don't like turning on
Yeah.
like regular TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't actually
Yeah.
watch regular TV either. We don't have cable at our house.
Yeah.
So, I'm very similar. I sort of like don't have a preference. I'll read whatever sort of crosses my news feed, because I do rely on that. I like to read sort of all different perspectives, political spectrums. I think it's just good to get all sides. I do have one person on Instagram, and I think I can give her the shout out, Jessica Yellen, and she runs News Not Noise, and I feel like that's exactly what it is news not news not noise. So I do really enjoy following her, and then I, like you said, sort of go to the sources. So that's really helpful, and I do read our local newspaper every morning. Of course, I interact with the press a lot. Every once in a while, if we have a story relevant to our community, I'll read like State House News. That's super helpful. The Boston Globe or something like that. One of the other things, I think it was Secretary Pete who said it, was something about our news feed now being sort of curated by an algorithm, not by an editor. And I thought, well, even the editors make mistakes, right? Like they're human. And I think, like we said, some people will put a whole lot of trust in someone who may have no expertise in the topic. I want to just issue a word of caution of, also putting a whole lot of trust in sort of anyone editorializing or, writing an article or like you said, read different perspectives on it and sort of, go right to the source if you can. It's
everybody's chasing clout right now.
Everyone's looking for like the best headline to get people to click, and it's easy for them to make mistakes. If they write a retraction or correction the next day, no one sees it. Our conversations get recorded, but they don't always capture it might not come out in text with the exact word that we said. They can, hear it wrong. They can, not all the information could be shared in the conversation. There's just like a lot of ways that it could go, that could be misinterpreted in an article. And then the people reading the article think it is fact and totally trust it as truth. And so again, I'm just, there's so many different ways that we're getting our news. And I just, in general, again, like we have to retrain our brains to find truth and establish trust. And like you said, for us, it's, sometimes just so much easier to have an in-person conversation, and we've found ways to sort of validate truth, like body cams for police officers. Like we have to have it on camera now. Like, like I said, our conversations with the press are recorded. It's just a weird world.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like recordings, I forgot where I heard this or read this, but they were talking about pictures, right? They were talking about how pictures like used to be like where you get the proof for things, right? But now you have Photoshop. Now you have all these AI tools, right? It's like I could take a picture and manipulate it into whatever I want.
Yes.
That like, can I really trust that anymore? Like I could take text messages and, change things and make it look like, you know what I mean? Like whatever I want. So it's like, like, how do you know that that's the truth or whatnot? Like it's different. Like things are just moving differently. So it's like that person to person relationship and going to the sources, kind of asking the right questions, and understanding the body language and, just, it still matters. Like,
Yeah. And so, in a lot of ways, I feel like that's one of my biggest responsibilities is establishing trust in the City of Amesbury's, officials, like in our government, in me, so that people do come to us for information. I started with we started this conversation with branding,
Yeah.
right? But I want people to go to our website
Right.
as a direct source. I want them to go there for information. I want it to be easy to navigate. I want them to know they're looking at something that
Official.
we've created
Yeah.
that's official. I want like we said, we've got to all retrain ourselves to sort of decipher, what is accurate and true. I want you to be able to know if you're on a city Facebook page. I want you, if you got a letter in the mail, I want you to know that it's really from us, right? If it's about a tax bill or a water bill, I want you to know it's ours. So it's kind of full circle for us. Like that's why some of that is so important.
Right.
That it's going to be just like a spam email, right?
Right.
You know kind of what to look for to say, was this really from the city of Amesbury, or should I
Right.
should I trash it, right?
Right.
So yeah, all just really important things for us to think about. And again, for me, I think one of my biggest responsibilities, which was not something I really had in mind when I took office, but when I had those first few interactions and it was like, yeah, right, you'll never do that. The city's never really delivered. And I don't believe you. I thought, well, what changed from yesterday to today,
Right.
So it's become more and more important.
Right. I have a quick question, and maybe there's no direct answer to this, but I'm sure there are people that will go to our city website, read information, and still not believe it.
Really.
Is there penalties for putting up false information for a city, or officials? And not to say that happens, but I'm just saying, people that go in there don't believe it. Why else wouldn't you believe it?
Yeah, that's a good question. My gut reaction would be no. There wouldn't be any penalty for it.
Right. I guess you would
And I
lose
think
a
that
lot
comes
of
down
value.
to trust in the leadership,
Right.
right? Do you trust that I wouldn't put up a page that says, we're going to, build a new, I don't want to use a bad example.
Yeah.
We're going to build a new police station,
Yeah.
right? Do you trust that I would not put that up if I wasn't going to build it?
Right. Got it.
I guess it
yeah.
comes back to us, right?
Right.
Of
True.
who you're putting in leadership and, the staff and team that are there, which is, a whole nother conversation about staffing and hiring. And I feel like we've touched on it before, but it's really important that we invest in our staff and we have, qualified and, great professionals working for our city so that is all robust, up-to-date, accurate information.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So the small things, if they notice, all the small things add up, you know what I mean? You build the trust that way.
Yeah.
Gotta make sense. But I think this was a great conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for chatting
I
today.
hope this leads to people actually going to our site now.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, go check us out. Follow us on social.
That's it. Trust the information.
Thanks for our talk over tea today. This was a good one.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.